Today on the Transplant Helper, we're going to be discussing some little tricks and or hidden secrets concerning the current heart transplant status listing or allocation system. Now, these are things you will not hear in your doctor's office. You won't hear them at clinic. You will not hear them from the United Network for Organ Sharing or UNOS. You probably won't hear them anywhere except for right here. So go ahead and stay tuned. Hey folks, welcome to Transplant Helper again. Today, my name is Jim Merle, and today we're going to be talking once again about the current heart transplant status listing or allocation system, aka the list. That's what we're talking about today. Now, as you probably already know, I've got several programs that concern this, things I'll be linking up here in the corners as well as in the description below that you can go back and watch concerning what the system is all about. Things like what does it mean to be a status 1A, a 1B, a status 2, a status 7, things about the current status listing system, which was that, versus the potential system that's on its way, that's going to eventually come in to the heart transplant world, how that affects us, how those changes will impact us, and potentially could really change everything. I've already talked about that on previous programs. I've got them linked up here in the corners. You can look at that little information dot there in the corner, click that at any time. Go to those videos if you'd like. However, today we're going to be talking about the system as a whole and some of the tips, tricks, and I think even secrets, things you'll never hear anywhere else, but I think you ought to know concerning that heart transplant status listing or allocation system, the list. Now, I'll try not to say all of that again, but anyway, you know what we're talking about. So let me start out with basically 2 points here. And the first one will sound a little bit negative. I understand that. Hopefully the second one will lift your spirits just a little bit and help you to understand some things, again, that you're not going to hear anywhere else. And here we go. Point number one, and that is if you're listed as a status 1A, that's the top tier of the list. We won't talk about that any farther. But if you're listed as a status 1A, you are sicker than you think. You need to know that. That is a secret. Now, you say, well, wait a minute, I knew that. If I'm at the top of the list, if I'm at the status 1A point, I know I'm sick. Yeah, I get that. But you may not realize just how sick you are. Because if you think about it from the most legalistic, and I know that's one way of thinking, we may not think the same ourselves, but especially from the perspective of the doctors, the ones who are looking in on you, caring for you, when they decide and make the choice to apply to list you as a status 1A or top tier patient, what they have really said, now listen carefully to this because it may not be what you assume. What they have really said is that they believe that your chances of living longer than 30 days do not exist. Now, is that to say that no one lives longer than 30 days as a status 1A? No. I think the majority of us who were status 1As probably waited longer than 30 days. Obviously, we made it longer than 30 days. However, technically, in the back room of those boardrooms, in the bottom of those document pages that they've got on you, what they have had to sign off on, that is the physicians have had to sign off on, is that they believe, statistically speaking, based upon evidence that is given by testing, as well as the way you feel, all factors involved, such as what was done in the evaluation process. Again, I've got videos to that I'll link up to here as well if you want to see those. But what they have decided is, statistically speaking, it seems that you're going to live less than, and I don't know if I'll get the less than in the right direction. We're on camera. Forget it. I probably won't. But they assume you're going to live less than 30 days. Now, I realize we all want to be a status 1A. We all want to be at the top of the list. Why? Because wait times are shorter there. Because the chances of survival are better there. Sort of. That sort of thing. But understand that when a doctor looks you in the eyes and says, we're going to list you today as a status 1A, or we're going to move you today to a status 1A, they've said an awful lot, but one of the things they've morbidly said, honestly said, is that they believe statistically you're not going to make it past the 30-day mark. Now, that sounds terrible and that's awful to hear, but you need to hear it. That's the truth behind this status listing or allocation system. That's one of the things they're signing off on by putting you at that very top tier. So let's flip that over. Let's get away from that. That's depressing. Let's say it in a different way. And that is, not only may you be sicker than you actually think, it also may be the case that you're not as sick as you actually think. You say, wait a minute, how can you say it one way and then turn around and say it the other and both be true? Just hold on, we'll see. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose for just a moment, I'll use my case. Back in 2013, which I was evaluated 4 times from 2009-ish up to 2013. But back in 2013, when I had just been evaluated for transplant for the 4th time, they made a decision on me and said, Jim, we're going to list you, but we're going to list you as a status 1B, second tier from the top. We're going to put you on 24/7 Milrinone via IV, which I went home with. Of course, I got to go home, and they said, we're listing you as a status 1B. That's where you are. Hopefully, you'll be transplanted from there. But I already knew in the back of my mind, you know what? Probably statistically, albeit many of you are transplanted as 1B. Some are transplanted status 2s even. I knew in the back of my mind, you know what? I'm probably going to have to get sicker to actually get transplanted. Fast forward, 265 days later, as a status 1B, I not even got a call. No false alarms, no dry runs, nothing like sometimes we honestly get. I'd not even got as much as a whisper from my transplant team. So, of course, I'm beginning to worry. They're beginning to worry because I'm not finding the matches and this sort of thing. I'm just not coming up in the top of the pool. So here's what they did, and this is the secret. Look at me right now. This is the secret. This is the thing no one else is going to tell you, but I'm telling you it's true and you need to know. What they did with me, they do with so many other patients. They took me as a status 1B. Now, I wasn't doing good, okay? I was sleeping 16, 18 hours a day. I couldn't hardly walk without getting out of breath. The typical stuff. I got that. But they took me as a status 1B after 265 days. Randomly, I go into clinic one day. It was May the 2nd, 2013 specifically, and it was about 10 a.m. I go into clinic that morning, and they say, look, time is up. We're going to put you in the hospital. We're going to do some things. Listen carefully. We're going to do some things to you to help you get listed as a 1A. Now, I didn't really understand what they were saying then, but here's what they did. They put me in the hospital and they started talking about all the options, running down all the options. Jim, we may have to do an LVAD. Jim, we may have to put you on ECMO. Jim, we may have to add dibutamine on top of your Milrinone. Jim, we may have to up your Milrinone to a very high level. It's going to be hard to deal with. Jim, we may put in a Swan Gans. I've had programs on that I'll link to here. We may do all of this stuff. Why? Am I that much sicker today than I was yesterday? Truthfully, no, I wasn't. They said we've got to present the case. We've got to let United Network of Organ Sharing know, UNOS, that you are the sickest patient in the country. Now, here's the trick. While they were doing that for me and to me at UAB Hospital, and by the way, they didn't do all of the above. I'll come back to that in a moment. But while they were presenting all of that to me and for me at UAB Hospital, I'm sure there was somewhere else in the world, say the Mayo Clinic, Rochester, New York, where Mark Johnson was transplanted. There was somewhere else in the world where there was another doctor, another team who had told their patient the same thing, who said, look, you are not as sick as this is about to present you to be, but we've got to do it. Now, they probably wouldn't tell you that, but there's someone else, somewhere else in the United States, in the world, that was being brought into the hospital probably that same day, that same time, and having all these things laying on him, all these things added to their treatment immediately in order to do one thing on either side. Present on paper, that they had the sickest patient in the country. Now, you say, well, that's wrong. No, that's what happens. It happens every day. And you should hug your team, your doctors' necks if they give you that opportunity. Now, statistically, they were still having to deem me that I might die within 30 days. Same scenario as the other. But you see, I may not have been the sickest kid on the block May the 2nd, 2013. So they brought me in. Because of my anatomy, I couldn't take a Swan Gans, and that was kind of a given, to help me get listed higher. They couldn't do that. I wasn't a good candidate for LVAD. I've already had a program on that. I just put up the last week or so. I'll link it. I wasn't a real good candidate for LVAD, but they were at least were saying, we'll do it if we have to. And I was saying, well, if you have to, I'll do that. But they were talking ECMO, they were talking dibutamine on top of the milrinone, and what they did do is they ramped my milrinone level up, and it was terribly hard to go through. But inside of a week, they took me from just a general everyday dose to the highest dose possible, but enough to where they could pick up the phone or however they do that literally and let Unos know, look, he's on the highest dose of milrinone we can give him. He's as sick can be, and we think he ought to be at the top. 7 days later, I received an offer. 14 days later, I was transplanted. That's my story. Now, are there other stories like that? Yes. What am I saying to you? Am I telling you that United Network for Organ Sharing is full of loopholes and the doctors are beating the system? No, not from that perspective. What I'm telling you is you have a team in your corner that's standing behind you, that's willing to help. And they're willing to do what they can inside of the criteria that's set up legally to present you as being the best candidate in the United States to get a heart. Just like everybody else's teams are doing for them if they care. That's kind of one of the secrets. So what am I saying again? You may not be as sick as you think. I had a good friend of mine. When this happened to him, he got through in the hospital out of the blue. He was saying to his friends and family, I don't feel that bad. What happened? I was fine yesterday. He really wasn't fine, okay? Trust me. But at the same time, I told him, I said, look, the team here is taking care of you. They are going to make you look the worst case they can because they've got to present that case to Unos and they've got to get you a heart. They've got to save your life. You cooperate, you do what they say, do what they ask, and you'll survive. I don't know if this has helped you out in some way, but if it has, I hope you'll go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Maybe consider liking this program, subscribing, whatever, but share this out with some of your friends because I don't intend it to be scary. I intend it to be comforting to them, to let them know that there are people, there are teams, there are doctors that are on your side and they're going to fight for you. They're going to stand up for your cause. And they're going to help you the best way that they can. Secrets, yes. Will your doctors tell you this? Probably not. If you tell them what I said, they'll probably deny it. But that's the way the system works behind those closed doors. Hope this has helped you out. If it has, go ahead and like, subscribe, share this out. Comment below your situation if you'd like. I'd love to hear your story. But until next time, please stay stronger, friends.